Hello everyone, and today we're going to go over the performance and limitations of the Cessna 172 for our lesson today. And to start off, I'm going to show you what is mainly used when talking about the performance and limitations. It's the Cessna 172 information manual that you'll need to have when you're learning to fly on the Cessna 172, and this is mainly used for weight and balance, crosswind, and center of gravity limitations. And if you quickly scroll to the front of the book, you'll be able to find the different sections that are in the Cessna 172. The weight and balance you'll do before every single flight, and that also in turn affects the CG limitations, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And also, there's thousands of different calculations that you could do with this book that aren't too hard. You just have to listen to what the book says and look at the charts. Some of these are crosswind limitations, other limitations that you'll need to know when you're flying the Cessna 172. And in general, there's 5 different main things that affect an aircraft's performance, specifically with the Cessna 172. Wind, it's a little vague, but specifically with the 172, there's tailwinds, headwinds, crosswinds, winds aloft, and so there's not just one main thing that you have to focus on. There might be different winds in the ground to where winds aloft may be different, maybe affecting things, and the winds can be variable, and so that also is a main reason why winds are really important when you're looking at how the aircraft performs day in and day out. And another thing that affects the aircraft's performance is the density and temperature. With changes in density and temperature, you'll see your aircraft perform either better or worse depending on what the two are set at. And so different days, nicer days, colder days may affect the how you fly and how the Cessna 172 reacts to your controls that are put in. And these last main 2 things are what we're going to focus on the most, the weight and the center of gravity. The weight limitation for the Cessna 172 is 2,550 pounds, and that's strict when you're flying. You have to stay within those limitations. That was all tested by Cessna to make sure that people are within the safe boundaries that the airplane was supposed to operate. And kind of rolling into the center of gravity, the weight and where weight is at in the plane affects the center of gravity, whether it's forward or aft. And these 2 main things is what you'll be able to notice the most when you're flying in and out. Whether or not you know how much weight you have will affect the performance of the Cessna 172. Specifically on takeoffs and landings, you may need a little bit longer runway when you have a higher weight. And depending on the center of gravity, that's going to affect how the airplane flies on different days. And so some days you may need to trim up or use different amounts of trim throughout the flight. And other days your center of gravity will be near the center of the aircraft to where you won't need much trim and it will fly more smoothly. But across the board, these are all kind of the main things that impact the Cessna 172. Like I said before, the weight and balance, you're going to do that before every flight. You have to, and different days when you're looking at the METARs, you have to check and see if there's a crosswind on which runway you'll be using, because at Liberty, there are certain limitations to students, whether or not they have their private, whether or not they're going on a solo, that you have to stand by, and the FAA requires different limitations. And so it's mainly it's not the flashy topics, but you really have to stick to these when you're learning to fly, and Liberty does a good job of hammering them in throughout your flight training. And so when you're going through and doing your weight and balance every day, know why you're doing it, how it affects the airplane, and you'll be able to think and know beforehand how your certain airplane is going to act, whether or not you have a passenger in the back of the plane, whether or not you have more or less fuel in the back. And so this main book is a really great help in knowing the performance and limitations of the Cessna 172, along with your weight and balance sheets and other sheets that you can find in the Skyhawk manual.